week called Modern Approvals. So what we'll do today is in this webinar, we'll talk about why flow and approvals, talk a little bit about the history of our investment in this area. We'll talk about approvals in flow as of yesterday and what were some of the shortcomings that led us to invest in modern approvals. And then we'll spend the bulk of today's webinar introducing modern approvals. And then we'll save some time at the end to introduce you to our roadmap and tell you what's coming up in the coming months. So as you're all aware, Microsoft Flow is targeted at non-developers, business users working in the enterprise to work smarter by automating workflows across your favorite apps and services. With Flow, you can set up a workflow to do things like get notifications. So for instance, let's say you get an email from a specific person, like your boss. You can send yourself a push notification letting you know that that person has emailed you. Or, for example, if there is a new tweet about a particular topic, you can notify yourself and send yourself an email with details about that tweet.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back out. This camera's microphone is picking you up beautifully, but it's also bringing the focus back to a camera that's turned off. So what we're going to do is you're going to hear nothing for a second, guys.
Hi, folks. Just a quick mic check. Can you hear me?
I think it's working now. So continue. Let's go on the assumption it's working.
Okay, great. So as I was saying, Flow helps you get notifications. Flow can also be used to synchronize files. So for example, imagine that you use, let's say, OneDrive for uploading your files. It could be, for example, on your phone. You can set up a flow that automatically copies images that you upload to a folder in OneDrive to something else, like let's say OneDrive for Business or SharePoint. So imagine that you scan your expense receipts using your mobile phone. It goes into a folder in OneDrive. You can then set up a flow that automatically copies it from that OneDrive folder to a folder in OneDrive for Business or SharePoint that you can then share with your manager or your colleagues. Flow can also be used to collect data. So for instance, you could set up a flow such that whenever there's a new tweet about a particular topic, like let's say, hashtag Microsoft Flow or something else that's trending, like a tech conference, etc., you can take all those tweets and put them into something like SQL Server, on top of which you can run, you can set up a Power BI dashboard and spot trends. You can also do it for things like, if you're getting feedback through Twitter or through Discuss or through user voice, you can automatically create issues, for example, in Jira, or you can create a support ticket in Zendesk, etc. So it's a way to collect data and move data between one service and another. And finally, and the reason we're all here, is Flow can also be used to automate approvals. And by approvals, we've seen people talk about scenarios across a variety of things. And as I'm sure all of you are aware, approvals are an integral part of every single business that's out there. In fact, all of us in this room are here because of some sort of approval process where somebody made the wise decision of hiring us. But in terms of what we've seen, in terms of common scenarios, we've seen people wanting to build approvals around vacation requests, around travel authorization, around expense and mileage reimbursements, around equipment rentals, equipment inspections, etc. We've also heard and seen people build flows around document approvals. So imagine that you have a contract or a spec that you want to get approval on. You can send that out to a specific person. If that person approves or rejects, you can take a series of actions, like either changing the state of that document, maybe marking it as approved in something like SharePoint, or handing it off to another person or notifying them that something has been approved. Approvals can also be used for issue tracking. So for example, I mentioned a few minutes ago this example of Discuss. So what you could do is you could have an approval workflow such that whenever there's a new Discuss comment, you can take details about that Discuss comment, send an approval to somebody, like let's say someone who's responsible for looking at that feedback, let's say someone in the community or someone that's writing that documentation or blog post, etc. Have them triage it, and if it's worthy of being a work item or something that needs to be addressed, you can create a to-do in Wunderlist, or you can create a new item in something like Jira as well. And finally, you can also use approvals for things like lead generation. So let's say you get a tweet or you get a comment on user voice. If you think that you have an approval process, you can analyze the sentiment. If it's positive, you can send that to an approver. If they approve, then you can add them to something like CRM. Now, another reason for why we're so heavily invested in approvals and why it's such an important scenario is because flow is, and we've said this in the past, and our colleagues in SharePoint have said this as well. Flow is the spiritual successor to SharePoint Designer, and approvals were the most common scenario in SharePoint Designer. So to us, it's almost a spiritual calling. It's almost incumbent upon us to build an approval process that's easy to use, that's easy to set up, that's easy to invoke, that everybody in the enterprise can use. And just like Flow is trying to make it easier for these non-developers, these citizen developers, so to speak, to create workflows, we think that it's almost incumbent upon us to do the same with approvals, to make it easier for everybody to build approval-based workflows. Now, as many of you, I'm sure, are aware, they're currently in Flow, and I'll say this is the experience as of yesterday or last week. We did have an approvals experience. It was powered by the Office 365 Outlook send approval email action. It sent you an email with HTML-enabled buttons. You could have approve, reject. You could customize it. You could say yes, no, maybe, etc. Now, some of the feedback we heard from customers such as yourself is that doesn't use a system account, for example. So if I set up the workflow and it's meant for people within my business, it's weird that it always sends the email using my credentials. I wish it used a system account. Hey, as an approver, why can't I provide a reason for approving or rejecting? It's really rude to just say no. People want to be told why you're saying no. There was no out-of-box persistence either of pending requests or any sort of approval history. So if an approval came to me and I was away from my desk and didn't look at my email for a few days, that was really it for that approval. There was no way to see all the things that were pending for me. There was really no mobile story either. So in response to all of this feedback, we've been hard at work for the past few months working on a modern approval story. And it gives me the utmost of greatest pleasures to introduce you to this new experience. And to do that, I'm going to play a little video. Is the audio playing? Let's try that again. Chuck, can you confirm if the audio is playing?
No. Can't anybody hear the video? Almost sounds like a Pink Floyd.
Oh, okay. Well,
No audio.
no audio. Let's try playing it off YouTube directly then.
You weren't going for the mime look, right?
No, it was not.
Okay. Isn't it the second one down?
Yeah. Still no audio, I take it.
No.
Well, we will, what we'll do is we'll do it old school. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
And Clark,
So ever been stuck waiting for an approval on a document before you can move forward, or we're away from your desk and giving the okay was next to impossible?
Clark is saying that the reason it's not playing is it wasn't approved.
Nice. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
So we'll go through the video really quick, and I'll also let you watch it. But the reason I wanted to show this video is just because it gives you a very quick overview of what approvals is all about and what we're aiming towards. So let me just go through it. I'll read through the voiceover, and then we'll look at the approvals hands-on. So let's start over. So as this great video begins, as every video begins, ever been stuck waiting for an approval on a document before you can move forward? Or were away from your desk and giving the okay was next to impossible? Introducing an easier way to get and manage approvals using Microsoft Flow on the web, your phone, or even right from your inbox. Say you've got a presentation in SharePoint that needs an okay from your manager before you share it out. Open the Microsoft Flow panel within SharePoint and set up an approval request via email using one of the pre-made templates. Your manager can either approve from the Flow site, where they can see all their pending requests on a single screen, from the Flow mobile app, or reply with comments right in the email. It's that easy. And you can use the streamlined approval process for data in SharePoint, in Dynamics 365, in Twitter, MailChimp, and over 100 other services. Sound interesting? Go to aka.ms/flow approvals today and try it. That's going to be my call to action after our webinar as well, which is to go out and try Microsoft Flow and try approvals. It is being globally deployed right now. So in some regions, you might see it earlier than in other places. So with that said, let's look at a hands-on demo. Now, let's imagine that.
Can I ask a question that
Yes.
Sandy brought up?
Yeah.
So Sandy is saying, and I don't quite understand this. I don't have the new approvals yet, though my tenant is in first release. I'd hope to see it before the Flow demo I did yesterday, but I'm not sure it'll arrive soon.
So that's a good question, Sandy. So it's actually a first release region within Flow and Power Apps. It's actually not the same as the first release tenant that we have in Office 365. And currently, like, the first release region is still something that we're working on exposing publicly to customers. It's right now, it's still an internal thing, and very soon, within the next month and a half or so, we'll be making it publicly available. So you'll be able to see early bits in the first release region. But in places like in for example, Japan, in Australia, in parts of Asia as well, approval is available, and it'll be rolling out globally today and tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So now let's imagine that we have an approval process around our tweets. I'm not suggesting that people in the current landscape can use this, but I'm saying maybe it's a suggestion. But let's say that you have an approval process for your tweets, and you put your tweets into a SharePoint list. And once it's been added to a SharePoint list, it generates an approval request for somebody who can look at that tweet and decide whether it's appropriate to be posted publicly or not. So what we want to do is we want to set up an approval workflow such that whenever an item is added in this SharePoint list here, approval for Flow Tweets demo, it results in an approval sent to a specific person. And if that person approves, it gets posted to Twitter. If it also updates the SharePoint list and says it's been approved. Now, if it's declined, it sends an email to the person that requested that or put in that tweet saying, hey, sorry, it's been rejected, and includes the comments that the manager provides. Okay, so let's go into Flow, and let's go into the approvals page. So this is the approval center. Right now, it has a receive requests tab. So these are all the approvals that are pending for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Create Approval Flow button here.
The entire chat window wants Donald Trump to use this approval process for all of his tweets.
I will be honest. I did draw inspiration from Donald Trump.
Okay. I'm glad somebody has.
Exactly. I was going to say a phrase no one has said. That said, so let's click on this template here, start approval when a new item is added. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring up a template which already has certain things baked into it. All I need to do is take that template, customize it, and I should have my flow ready to go. So in this case, the first thing it does is ask me to verify my credentials. I'm using my Hade at Microsoft to send an email. For SharePoint, I'm using the same credentials. And for approvals, I already have a connection that's ready. It's a system-based credential. So we'll go ahead and click continue. Okay, so I have a flow here. Currently, what this template does is when an item is added, it starts an approval. If the response is approved, it informs the item creator of approval. If the response is a no or a reject, it informs the item creator of rejection. So I'm going to customize this, and what we'll do is, first and foremost, we'll specify our site address. So some of you might notice this. We've improved our site address dropdown. So this actually now shows your most recently used sites, and it's filtered to show just the sites that we support. So in this case, these are my most recently used sites. Also, I'll go ahead and click Process Simple Partners. I have a list here called Approval for Flow Tweets Demo. And I'm going to customize the start approval action. Now, this is a brand new action that we're shipping as part of the Modern Approvals experience. And we'll take a look at what are these different fields and the different outputs. But here, what you're seeing on screen is what's required is a title for that particular approval request. There's an assigned to field who you want to approve this. There are details, an item link, and an item link description. So we'll keep the title as proposed tweet text. Or actually, why don't we customize this? Let's make this new tweet. Please approve. And we'll assign it to myself, but you can also assign it to somebody like a manager. So in this case, I could type in Hade. We'll search for the office graph. We'll find you, and we'll assign this to you. But alternatively, you could also add in a token here to get a specific user. So you can do get user. And you can also use this to get, for example, someone like the uploader's manager. So in this case, we'll get my profile. And here, we'll just use a token. Instead of Merwan Hade, we'll just use me. So email ID of user. And in the details, we'll include the tweet text. So here we'll throw in the tweet text. So, okay, so created by display name at this time. This is the proposed tweet text. We can actually also drop in a link to that SharePoint list so that to make it easier for the approver. So this link could be anything. It could be a link to a Power App, be a link to the tweet, etc. In this case, it'll just be and link, say link to tweets list. And in my condition, I'm going to say response is equal to approve. And here, if yes, I'm going to say send an email to the person that created that proposed tweet. Say, hey, it's been proposed. Your request for proposed tweet text has been approved. And if I have multiple approvers, that's where approver name becomes relevant. So let's look at some of the properties that are returned as part of this approvals action. So you have approver email, approver name, comments, details, item link, response, title. So I can use all of these as part of any downstream action that references this approval. So in this case, I'm saying if there are any comments, and I'm also including the approver's name. What I'll also do here is I'll also add an action here to update the SharePoint item. So here I'll click on SharePoint, and I'll say update item. And we'll use the same list and site that we were using, Process Simple Partners. Go ahead and click Approve Flow Tweets Demo. ID, we'll keep that the same. And we'll just say approved, yes. And we'll also include any manager comments. And let's do the same thing for the other side. So let's go ahead and hit update item here. Again, we'll choose the same site, same list name. We'll choose the same ID. But this time, for approved, we'll actually go ahead and say, no, it wasn't approved. And then these are the comments. And there's also a rejection mail that's already part of this email. Now, one other thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a step here that posts the tweet. Let's try that again.
So a couple people are saying, is there any chance you can actually get the author to actually show it as larger? What's happening is the resolution scaling back down to 720p is coming across and we're losing a lot of the text.
Okay.
If you do like a Control Plus, it's actually make it larger in the editor environment there.
How's that, folks?
Do a lot more scrolling, but
okay, that's fine. Yeah, a little bit of scrolling here. But let's go ahead and search for Twitter.
that actually looks a lot better for me. Hopefully this will actually look good for the folks on the call too.
Okay, so let's go ahead and create our approval flow here. Let's give it a few seconds to save the flow.
And while it's saving, let's ask a couple questions.
Sure.
So Jerry was asking, can I programmatically add people to my flow? And I think that comes in 2 different places. And you can feel free to correct me. It's going ahead and adding people as far as text to the entries itself, like I'm going to send it to email this or that approver. Or, and I didn't quite understand what Jerry was asking, or actually people who can go out and see the flows in the brand new My Team paradigm. So starting with the My Team or the team flows, I would use Active Directory groups, right? And I would actually use the AD metaphors to do it that way. Okay, that's good.
So So to answer that question, you can add people, you can add groups of people, you can add people from Active Directory, and you can also use a token. So for example, like in this case, it's getting my profile, but you could also imagine that like you get the creator, the item creator's manager. So depending on who's created that item, we'll go to Office 365 users API. We'll look up who that person's manager is, and we can dynamically plug that into this approval flow.
And as far as another programmatic way of going out and sending it to multiple email addresses, I would actually have another activity that goes out and reads some data source and reads that back. Is that right?
Yeah.
So Jerry, hopefully that makes sense. So within a flow, if you want to actually add users, did it save?
Yes, it did. Okay. Then let's go ahead and create a new tweet. Have to make sure it's less than 140 characters, but I'll just say demoing approvals in #Microsoft Flow at a webinar. And let me go ahead and save this. And if we switch over, so what's going to happen is SharePoint is going to tell Flow that, hey, a new item was added to this list, and it's going to assign an approval to me, which I'll then be able to see in the approval center. I'll also get an email with details about that tweet, like I'd set up here. And once I approve or reject, the rest of the flow will execute. Let's give that a few seconds. And I'll create another one just in case. Demoing approvals in Microsoft Flow webinar 2. We'll go ahead and hit save. Let's give that a second. Meanwhile, let's try to debug it and see what's going on here. So we click on it. Well, you know what they say with the demo gods, but I'll just move on and I'll show you what the experience looks like for approvals. So the first thing that happens is when an approval is sent, I get an email, so something like this. What I can do from here is if I click approve or reject, it actually takes me to what's known as the approval center in Microsoft Flow. Here, I can see all of my received requests, including this one that I just clicked on. With this, I can either hit approve or reject, and I can also put in a comment if I want. So in this case, I can take one of these. I can hit approve or reject. I can check out a link as well. And if I hit approve or reject, it says add comments. You can add a comment as well. Okay, so seems like our flow failed for some reason, but the good thing is we can actually go in and debug why it's doing so. So let me go ahead and move on to the second demo here, which is around document approvals. Now, let's imagine that I am working on a blog post for approval. So this is actually based on a true story, on a real life story of last week, where I was working on a blog post for approvals, which went out on Monday. And I wanted to get approval from my manager on this specific document. So in SharePoint, I'm in a document library here. We'll go into blog post. I'll select a particular.
We're not in SharePoint. Oh, now we are. Okay.
Okay. So I have a blog post here introducing modern approvals. What I'll do is I want to set up a workflow such that when this document is selected in SharePoint and I click a button to run this flow, it sends an approval mail to my manager. And if he or she approves, then I get an email back saying that's been approved. So I'm going to go ahead and click on flow and then create a flow. And this opens up a panel in SharePoint. So what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and click on complete a custom action for the selected file. And we'll customize it a little bit and add in approvals.
There must be networking issues going on.
I think so.
Because did you see what the error was on that flow? It was timeout.
Timeout, yeah.
Yeah. So there's an issue, and John couldn't get on when we walked in the room too.
So complete a custom action for the selected file. Let's go ahead and click continue. And what we'll do is let's customize this a little bit. So here, let's add an action like we did earlier for approval. Now let's see if the demo gods are nicer to me the second time around. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and click approvals. We'll click on start an approval. And in the title, we'll just say, please approve this document. And we'll pass along the name, so the file name. And we'll assign it, again, this time I'm gonna just hard code my own name in instead of my manager, but you can imagine that you send the approval request to your manager. So in this case, I'll put that in. Details, we'll just say, review this file and approve. So we'll put in the file name here. And in the item link, we'll just use the URL of the document, or item URL. And the description is a link to file name. And then let's add a condition here. Now I'm adding a condition, but you can also add a switch case. So in this case, we'll go ahead and add a condition. We'll say if the response, and I have two options for the response. If the response is equal to approve or reject, so in this case, I'll go ahead with approve. So if the response is equal to approve, then send an email. To the person that created that document and let them know your request for file name has been approved. And then we'll just throw in a link to it. Okay. And we can do the same thing if we want for the no as well. So let's go ahead and create this flow. And let's just give it a friendly name. So let's call it document approval. Okay. Now in SharePoint, and I should add that this is actually new functionality. It's currently in Office 365's first release tenant, and we'll be rolling out everywhere soon. And we've blogged about this with the SharePoint team in the past. But now that this flow has been created in SharePoint, when I select this document, I start seeing this flow, document approval demo A20. Now when I click that, SharePoint is passing along the file that you just selected along with the URL to a particular endpoint, and this workflow executes. So in this case, if I now switch over to the approvals tab, let me go ahead and do that here. I should see a new approval request. Please approve this document, introducing modern approvals. It tells you when it was requested, April 20th at 10:34 a.m. So that's PST. Review this file and approve, and has the name of the file, introducing modern approvals.docx. It also has a link to that document, which is a company shareable link. There we go. It opens up that document. From here, I can either approve or reject. So I'm going to go ahead and click approve, and we'll type in a comment, something along the lines of "This looks fantastic," and we'll go ahead and hit approve. Now the flow executes, and as part of your approval response, you also get the ability to capture those comments. In this case, this was the responder, and here's what he said, which is, "This looks fantastic." And if we want, we could have taken that comment and surfaced it to our the person that was requesting this approval on this particular document. Now, the next scenario I want to show you is something that's slightly more realistic than something like the tweets approval demo. It's more around travel requests, and that's something that we've heard from a lot of our customers, is that they would typically use SharePoint to do things like travel requests or for work authorization, for leave requests, etc. Now, this doesn't have to be in SharePoint. It could be in another system as well. But for our demo, we'll continue to stick to SharePoint. So what I have here is I have a list called travel request demo. It has a few fields: purpose, destination city, departure date, return date, approval status, manager comments, etc. Now, what I've also done is I've actually built a quick Power App around this particular demo. And Power Apps, I know. All the love to Power Apps, our sister product. So what the idea behind this Power App is it's a way for employees to create travel requests. And if they want, they can go back and they can see the status of this travel request, and they can also see any comments that a manager has given. So what we'll do is we want to build an approval flow such that whenever a new travel request is added, sends an approval to a manager. And if that manager approves or rejects, we capture the comment, we update the SharePoint list, and we also notify the person requesting that travel, letting them know that it's been approved or rejected. So what we can do is we can actually go to a flow that I've already built here. It's called Travel Request Demo. And I won't actually build it from scratch, but I'll explain some of the key parts here. So just like earlier, we have when a new item is created, start and approval. If the response is equal to approve, inform the item creator of approval. So again, we're notifying the author.eno or the creator of this particular travel request. We're saying, hey, it's been approved. Your request for title has been approved by, it has the name of the approver. So if you have multiple approvers, it'll show you the name of the approver, comments, if any. And we'll also update the SharePoint list and capture the comments that the managers made. So in this case, I'll change the approval status to yes, and I'll change the manager comments and include comments. I'll do the same thing for rejection as well. And it's possibly more important in rejection, because if you approve a vacation or a travel request, that's all great and dandy. But it's when you reject, when it hurts the most, that you really want to know why your manager is turning you down. So let's go ahead and hit update flow. And let's create a new travel request using our swanky Power App. Here. Any suggestions, John, for where we're going to go for travel?
Oh, we want to go to Bora Bora.
Bora Bora. All right.
Or Maldives. Maldives is not going to exist in a couple decades. So.
All right. So
we should enjoy it while we can.
You got to get
beaches in Maldives. Let's go with that. And I'm going to go on Monday.
Okay.
And I'll be back, let's say May 8th. Destination city is the capital of the Maldives, Chuck.
Actually, it's Male, I believe. M-A-L-E.
M-A-L-E. Okay, great.
Love that you know that.
I'm a diver.
All right. So we see that it's instantly created. And if I refresh this SharePoint list, I should see that it gets created as well. And if I go into my flow, the flow starts running. When a new item is created, it starts an approval. Now this time I actually want to show you a mail that comes in. So just give this a few seconds. And this was the mail that I got in earlier for my modern approvals document. This is for my tweet earlier as well. Let's give it a few seconds for it to come in.
Now, in this case, since Stephen is oof today, could you have actually gone out and detected an oof and actually sent it to somebody else?
That's a good question. Not yet, but that's definitely something that we want to do in the future. Okay. So eventually what we want to do is we'll start off by giving you the ability to set up a reassign. If you feel like, hey, I don't have enough context, or if you're on the go, for example, you're on the road, you can just say reassign this to somebody else. And then eventually, a little further down the road, we actually want to give the ability to set up an automatic reassign. So if you're on vacation, be like, hey, I'm on vacation, always reassign to somebody else.
Nice. Okay.
So we're still waiting for that mail to come in. But in the meanwhile, let me just switch over to the Receive Request tab and refresh this. And we see that there is a new request from Merwan Hade, beaches in the Maldives. And because this is a demo, I can actually go into the list and I can also say approve, because I completely agree with this vacation request, Merwan. Just say this is so approved. And if we switch back now, so I will have gotten a mail from my manager, Merwan, saying that the vacation's been approved, and it'll also include the comment. Go for it. This is so approved. And if I switch into, let's switch into the Power App. So if I switch into the Power App and I click on this, and I refresh the app, it will have my comment. It'll also update the state and show that that item has been approved. Go for it. This is so approved. So just to recap, what we've shown you so far is you can create an approval flow using a series of templates that we're shipping. You can see all of your received requests in a unified place, and this is across flows, this is across sites, this is across services. This is, you can see here on my screen, I have approval requests from Twitter, I have approval requests from SharePoint. This could be for other services like Discuss, SharePoint, Power Apps, etc. You name it, Dynamic CRM, all of that. It's a single place where you can approve and reject. And as an approver, I can look at a particular request and I can hit approve or reject. I can also give in comments and inform users of why something has been approved or rejected. Now, in addition to that, we also actually send you, if you're on your phone, you can actually pull up through your email, and if you have the Flow mobile app installed, will actually allow you to do your approval and rejection directly on the Flow mobile app. And very soon, we'll also give you the ability to see these receive requests on the Flow mobile app. So really, you can do approval no matter where you go. So I'm going to switch back to PowerPoint, and I want to talk a little bit about our roadmap. So I just covered what we shipped today. Another thing I should call out is we send the emails that we send out are sent using the system-generated account. That was something that a lot of people gave us feedback on. So hopefully that's something that you guys find useful as you use approvals. A little later, we're going to be adding approvals from your email inbox using Outlook actionable messages. So essentially, you don't even have to go to the approval center. You don't have to leave your inbox, really. When you get an approval mail, you can directly hit approve or reject and type in your comments. We'll also start showing you sent requests. So you can see your received requests, you can see your sent requests, you can view your history as well. We'll also add the ability to reassign an approval. You can do all must approve. So today we're going to start off by saying any must approve, but very soon we'll also give you the ability to say all must approve. So if you add multiple approvers, like let's say you add Chuck, Mark, and I, you can actually say that until all three of us respond, the approval isn't considered fully processed. We'll also start to add things like automatic reminders, Power BI reporting, so you can see like how long an approval process is taking. We'll have custom options besides approve and reject, so you can do things like yes, no, maybe. We'll also have custom input forms for approvers. So as an approver, I'll be able to type in something like, let's say I want to say, hey, this is a suggested publication date. That could be an input that's captured from the approver every time they're processing a certain kind of approval. We'll also have things like sort and filter, organizational hierarchies, support for attachments, auto reassign that Chuck mentioned. We'll also have some sort of auditing story so you can view your team's history in the admin center. Now, the reason why we're being so transparent with this roadmap is because we want to hear from you. We actually want to hear from you directly how we should prioritize this backlog. So I'll make sure to come back to this slide, but just so that you know, the survey link is aka.ms/approvals-survey. But in the meanwhile, what I want to do is I want to have Chuck read out some questions if there are any, or any comments or feedback on what I've shown, as well as what's coming down the road.
Actually, and there aren't a lot. We've actually been nailing them in process in real time. So we're looking good. John actually just put one up. So John Longrave asks, can I reassign an approval programmatically? I.e., do I not need an approval within 3 days? I want to escalate to a manager automatically.
Yes, so you can actually do that. So for example, the ability to automatically escalate is something that you'll have right away. What you'll do is you'll say if an approval is assigned to me, you can hit approve or reject, or as soon as it's assigned to me, you can auto escalate it to somebody else. Now, having something like if it hasn't been responded in 3 days, that's something that's coming down the road.
Right, as you just talked about.
Yeah.
I think it would also be interesting if the people that can see it, because there's a couple people say that it's blurry, and it's actually on their side, I think, because
okay.
I can see just fine. If you guys could go out and put what would be your number one of the futures,
I would love to actually see that. Yes, Merwan had the survey, but in the chat window, if you could go out and say, this is the one that I want, and don't feel constrained to use this list at all. It'd be great to actually maybe talk about some of these. Also, for the Power BI reporting, I noticed in the middle, which caught my eye for obvious reasons. Of course, you don't have to wait for Merwan to do that. You can go out and push it into a Power BI data set as part of that workflow right now. So while he's going to do that for you automatically, you can also do that today with a little bit of work, one extra activity. So there is that. Let's see what people are saying. So Joe is saying, can I start a flow from an API call versus an event specified in the flow itself?
Absolutely. In fact, if I switch over real quick, just to show you a little bit about how the cake was made. Here, if you go into one of my flows for document approval, it's actually based on a post that gets made.
Nice.
So it's a programmatic post that the SharePoint team is making. They provide in a JSON schema that consists of an ID, the item URL, and file name. Then that results in a flow. So absolutely, you can initiate a flow based on a request.
Oh, that's very cool. So you just made the webinar for me right there. That's very, very nice. Jackie asked a slightly different question. I don't know if Jackie's a him or her, so I apologize for that, Jackie. Are we actually going to go out and talk a little bit more about formulas and other services and other webinars? The answer is absolutely. I just learned that I can't paste a URL into the chat window. So since you are sharing, can you open up the Flow blog?
Sure.
And you'll see that next week, we actually have Dima, a good friend of Merwan's and myself, who's going to be talking about using the on-premises gateway to talk to different data sets. And then 2 weeks after that, we've got one of the principal engineering managers is going to do a deep dive into formulas. So show out things like where right now Merwan is saying that he is his own manager using user.manager instead, things like that. So here's the, there it is. So you can see John, our buddy, is actually doing a webinar. But here's the blog post that has all the webinars out through June, I think is actually what we've got scheduled for. Okay, I hope that answers Jackie's question. Sandy's got a question. Under custom options, can you use a case action? Oh, I think a switch is what she's talking about. Is that what
Yes, absolutely. You certainly can. You can use a switch case. So in my case, I was using a condition, but you can definitely use a switch. You switch on the response, and then you can have a case for approve, a case for reject, or you can have a case that is a default. And certainly, our philosophy behind custom options is we're starting off by having approve and reject. But like I said, we definitely want to support in the future anything that you would like. So if you want yes, no, maybe, or if you want some sort of voting options, you can use it and customize it as you see fit.
So Christy went out and said, within your list, the one that she's definitely looking the most forward to is approvals directly from Outlook. Taylor Camera, is he one of us? Do you know Taylor?
He's one of us. Yeah.
Was going out and saying that you can also use webbooks in addition to the post. So Taylor, thanks for jumping on. And that, my friend, runs the well dry with the questions. So why don't you go ahead and close this, and we're going to give these folks 9 minutes back in their time for further questions.
Awesome. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us, and those of you that are going to listen to this after this recording is done. Glad you could spare some time for us. Really appreciate all the feedback and looking forward to your feedback, and let us know what you think of approvals. You can comment on the blog post directly that's out on flow.microsoft.com. You can reach out to us via Twitter, and you can also reach out to us via our forums. Please do remember to take this 5-minute survey. It really helps us. It gives us a good data point on how we can prioritize these features, and also make sure that we capture everything that's relevant to you in terms of approvals. So again, that link is aka.ms/approvals-survey. Approvals, like I said earlier, will be ready in all regions by the end of this week. So please do give it a try. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.